when we first started today, you were listening to a little bit of this brand new song I wrote called Cryptnotic, which is sort of this mysterious hypnotic groove that I centered this whole song around, is the kick drum and the snare. And real pure, real kind of basic, but then these subtle nuances with the rhythm of the kick drum versus the snare. And it grew into this song, and I thought, how perfect to have Gabe play on it. And so we just debuted it yesterday. And so you were listening to a little bit of that. Let's listen to this section that I really like right here for a second, and then we'll have Gabe kind of tell us what he was thinking. I just love the way that sounds. There's so many fluctuations in volume and textures of sounds and everything. And so Gabe had never heard this tune. I just said, play over this thing and let's see what happens. So Gabe, tell us kind of what you're thinking, if you can recall what you were thinking when there's that sort of soft area that we first started with, and then it gets into that real kind of louder, aggressive part. What's going through your mind as a jazz musician?
You know, especially in the past couple months, learning to incorporate what we do artistically into this new huge shift of like not playing live and recording music remotely to play with people. It's something that's totally new to me. And one of the things I miss the most is like the sort of spontaneity of just like, let's go. Like you hear, play what you hear, figure it out. So when you sent me this track specifically, I can't remember what was worded in the email, but it was kind of like, just here's the key and just like go. And so I didn't do a practice run. That's not true for all the pieces I've been recording and doing. But this piece, I kind of just, I'm not even sure I remembered it, that it was A flat Phrygian or whatever. I think I just started playing along and I was just trying to picture myself like on stage at one of your gigs playing a new tune. And so I was doing my best to just keep my ears open, close my eyes and respond to what I was hearing and try and picture it in the most musical context I could.
That, I got to stop you right there. That is so spot on. That's how I think too. I mean,
cool.
Good point. We need to have a sip of wine.
Yep.
You know what I found by even doing Sonic Tonic is, as we're doing that, I was going to respond to what you were saying. And typically when you're at a party or or just watching TV or something, you're doing this, you're not thinking about what you're eating or drinking either. So now when I'm on this thing and I'm talking about something, and then I say, hey, everyone, let's have a little sip. And normally I'd go, okay, so now, and did I even enjoy it? So there is a thing of going, let's hold on a second, let's take a breath.
Yeah.
And go, man, that is so berry. And it's right in the middle of my tongue. It's just like super strong and feels awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's gotten lost a little bit in the last 10 years, of society. And I think it's neat for us all to kind of go, man, what do I have right now? And can I enjoy it? Can I be grateful?
Yeah.
And what you said about, I give you a tune, which, by the way, I recorded live. I mean, I created it as a living creature, and then I give it to you. And when you listen to it, whether I'm sitting next to you or you're listening to it, you could still treat it that it's happening in the moment. And if you hear a random cymbal splash, then you can respond to that. And so that's why play-alongs are still in some area, half of it is live, maybe 3/4 of it. The 25% of kind of thinking live musicians played that, and then you're half of the equation when you're playing with it, right?
Totally.
It's a neat concept, but that's why I think it's interesting to talk about, because you are thinking about that. You're not just playing randomly like, oh, I play the trumpet, let me just go. You're actually going, oh, let me listen and respond, right?
Yeah.
So if everyone's not familiar, the sound that you were hearing of the trumpet is that real Miles Davis he kind of created that as sort of his sound, and that's a Harmon mute. And so, Gabe, why don't you just play a little bit of trumpet? Let's hear the natural trumpet sound. Play in that E major scale, G sharp Phrygian. That's what it is, basically 7 tones. Let's hear a little bit.
Yeah.
Love it, man. That's one of the things, everybody in Denver that knows Gabe, that's what we all love about your playing is, I think a lot of people think trumpet is kind of this strident, loud, obnoxious instrument, and you
Can be.
and actually my sister, who we all play together quite a bit, both of you have this like real mellowness and beauty to the sound, and it depends on who's playing it. It's not the instrument. So you think about that a lot.
I've really been thinking about it a lot lately too. But I always think, I can't remember who said this to me, but they said, play the room. Every time you walk into a different acoustical setting, that becomes part of your instrument. It doesn't end here. It ends with what it's reverberating around. And so I play differently when I'm on a big band gig versus a small group jazz gig versus where we are right now, which is like picking this right now. We're just on my microphone on my phone. So if I play anything above like a mezzo forte to even a mezzo forte could, depending on the range, override the microphone or overdrive the microphone. So I'm really trying to focus on exactly what you're talking about: sound, projection, and warmth of the tone at a quieter dynamic.
And that's honestly what I love about acoustic jazz, is that especially with great players that are real mindful of their environment, but also recording, because then it's this controlled thing where you can create this vibe. So if anyone was paying attention in that tune, when we opened up the show with, is it's like, man, there's a real nuance and vibe going on, and it's really about that reverb. We both discussed that and thought, that's a cool thing, this big kind of cavernous space that you can create. You play differently when you're hearing that. And the other sound was what I'm saying, this Miles Davis kind of typical sound that people relate to jazz trumpet, which is a Harmon mute. So Gabe, you want to show them a little bit of that?
Yeah, sure. It's always nice to gain a different timbre, because it kind of makes you improvise in a different way, changes your voice a little bit, you know.
Great. Can you point like a completely different direction?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like face away from this, turn sideways, and let's hear how
Yeah.
different that sounds. It's so interesting because I don't know if other people are hearing this, but I kind of hear more of the buzz of the mute, even when you turn sideways. So you're farther from the mic of the phone, but it's really
Yeah.
kind of buzzing crazy. I mean, it's a cool effect.
Yeah, I've noticed that the last record I did, nope, the record before the last one, I think it was called Things with like Gonzalo Tepa and Eric Gunnison and Alwyn on drums. I remember noticing that we were playing some little sketch of a piece that I wrote and just kind of grooving over it to see what it might become in the studio. And I was like, wanted to come in really quietly, but I didn't know if I had the control here. So I started away from, and I was playing with the mute. I started away from the microphone and I worked my way towards the microphone, and this phase effect kind of came in where like you could hear the buzz but not the tone, and then the tone came in and I was like, wow, another revelation. I thought about it prior to that, but you know, the microphone is part of our instrument too at that point, especially in the recording studio or playing with a funk band, a louder band. This instrument doesn't end right here. Like I said, that microphone is also part of what we do, and I'm sure you've noticed proximity matters. You get a lot of the low end of the sound when the microphone is really close to the bell. When the microphone is further away, we get a lot of those higher overtones. So depending on what kind of trumpet sound you're trying to record, or trying to play live, there's ways you can manipulate it with the microphone itself. You know, it's like, just like what were we talking about, detail oriented?
Yep. It's heavy, right? And at that point, you're thinking about the end product. This is a really cool concept. You're thinking about the end product and not so much about, wait, I have to finger this note this way on the trumpet. You're not thinking about the rhythm that you're playing, although all those are happening at the same time also, that's why music actually is quite complicated and difficult, and why you have to, if you really want to get to a high level of expressive creativity, you have to basically spend your life doing it, because there's all of that going on and you're thinking about how is the sound ending up in the room, and not about, wait, I'm on the third bar of Cherokee, right? And what's the chord?
You know, I've been teaching a lot more this past, I don't know, 6 to 8 months, but definitely more the past couple months. And I explain that to young students using the analogy of, you know, studying a foreign language. You know, when their teachers talk about studying French or Spanish, they say the end goal would be to become fluent in that language, basically conveying that when I'm talking to you, I'm not having to think about every word. I'm able to think about a concept that I'm trying to explain. Each word isn't having to be solidified and figured out and ordered and conjugated in my brain before I send it to you. And I compare that to improvisation or playing our instrument. And that's why, like, the concept of playing fundamentals and playing your instrument for a certain amount of time to get to the point where you don't have to think about this anymore. You can think about the end goal, whether that's playing a great solo on Cherokee or getting the greatest sound for this track you're recording, or reaching the audience in a way. You have to be able to not think about scales and chords to do that. You know?
That's so right on, and it correlates exactly with a great bartender and a great chef. At some point, they've done it so much, they just go, hey, make me the best pumpkin bread you can. They don't go and look up their recipe. They go, oh, I'm going to do this. And then they even take that creative choice and that chance and go, but maybe I'll put this extra little spice in here that I've been experimenting with for the last 2 weeks. And all of a sudden it turns into that this awesome new thing, but they weren't having to just read it. So just reading music can actually be a little bit limiting, right?
Yeah, well, and as long as we have this end goal in mind, this concept of fluidity and transcending the instrument or transcending the notes on the page or the notes up here to becoming something more than just the sum of its parts, I guess, if that makes sense, you know?
That's so, yeah, that's so what this is about.